gości tutaj na scenę. Tym razem będzie super ciekawie, super merytorycznie. Niezliczonej liczby książek o piwie, a pytać, rozmawiać z nim będzie oczywiście nieoceniony Artur Karpiński. Panowie, zapraszam. Proszę o oklaski dla naszych gości. Czy publiczność umie oklaski? Halo, publiczność? Wyśmienicie. Panowie, scena jest wasza. Zapraszam.
Wielkie brawa dla Markusa. Cześć wszystkim. Hello everyone. This one will be in English because my German is not that good. I'm sorry.
How about better than my Polish?
Oh, let's think. Let's see. You know, maybe you know some Polish. I don't know. I have my notes here. Forgive me, because
Perfect.
I really want that to be very meritoric. So, ladies and gentlemen, our guest tonight is the man himself, Markus Raupach, from Bamberg, from Germany, from the place where smoke defines beer, and this defines your life. And this is, my dear friend, a first question that I have.
Of course.
How being born in Bamberg, in this region where basically you breathe and live smoke, defined you first as a beer drinker and then as a beer specialist?
I would say totally.
Okay,
In both
that's
ways.
good.
So because the biggest question is, if people ask me, I don't really remember if the first thing I had is mother's milk or smoke beer. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But in general, the thing is, if you grow up in Bamberg, you grow up with that beer culture. So that means for you, that's normal. But when I got older, when I was studying, and when I had a lot of people from abroad coming to Bamberg, I learned that it is something special. So when we were around, after 2 weeks, they said, okay, we are now going out every night. And every night we drink beers from different breweries. And you still continue doing that. At home, we could never do that. And so I realized it's something special. And of course, then I got a special view on it and I started working with it.
It's great because I also love smoked beers, and when I make beers in the past, I a little bit specialized in smoked beers as well.
Good.
The thing is, many people don't like smoke. For example, I had a master class today, and most people really loved smoky beers, but some of them just said, okay, this is good, but I don't like smoke. Why do you think, from also beer judge perspective, why do you think some people just have this kind of dislike towards smoke in beer?
Maybe it's because their first approach to smoke wasn't a positive one. So maybe they had smoking people, or they had an ashtray or something like that, or they come to Bamberg and got unloaded out of a coach in the morning at 10 o'clock, and then they get half a liter of smoked beer on an empty stomach. That doesn't work. So you really have to get into it. And the best thing is with the right food, with the right mood, with the right people. And to be honest, if I go with people in one of our most iconic breweries, Schlenkerla, we go in the cellars and then we try the beer directly out of the lager tank. And they always say, we could never imagine that there is almost no smoky taste in that beer. Because this is the secret. So that's how it was served for hundreds of years. And so the smoke is just a bytone, but it's not the main component. And that's maybe also the secret of traditional smoke beers, that of course it's smoky, but it's not the intention to make it as smoky as possible. It's on the other end. It's more the intention to have some smoke, but to have a nice beer on the first row. And that is very important.
Because I don't know if many people know that, but in fact, I wrote an article about it in last Piwowy magazine. Back in very, very much history, like a few hundred years ago, basically every beer was smoked.
Yes.
Because that was the only way to dry malt, right?
Yes. Totally. So that's I always tell the people. So every sip of a smoked beer is a little time journey, or
Exactly.
a little time warp. So you go back into the times like 300 years ago, where every beer in Europe was a smoky one, just because they had to have fire to dry their malt. And from there, it's still the tradition of all the real smoke maltsters that they try to get as less smoke as possible in their malt.
Yeah.
Still until today, Schlenkerla and Spezial, they both do not intend to have the most smoky malt. the other way. They want to have as less smoke as possible.
But they still
in the
use the traditional smoking technique, right?
Yes.
The only two breweries, I think, in the world?
Yeah, probably. So I would say the only two really professional breweries who always kept doing it that way, because now we have some modern breweries or malteries in the Czech Republic or in Norway or in the States who are now also making these things.
But from traditional
it's
breweries.
New. Yes, so traditional
So only
way.
Schlenkela and Spezial.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. My second question is about your beer judge career, because of course you've judged multiple international competitions in beer and you're a specialist in that. So you have tasted like millions of beers, probably, unique beers.
I stopped counting.
If you had to choose like 3 aspects that differentiate a good beer from a gold medal beer, what would they be?
So I would say, first of all, it's something I would describe as the beer shines. So if you have a good beer, it's nice, and it's nice to drink, and it's all okay. But a gold medal beer is something that really drives you crazy. So you have it, and you're really fascinated. It has in all aspects of the specific style, it really ticks all the boxes. And it's a nice combination. It's harmony, it's balance, it's intensity of the aromas, and that all together with a high drinkability, that is a perfect beer. And the good thing is that is also a little bit personal. So we all have then good beers on a final table, but for many of the judges, the gold medal beer may be different. And then we start talking and convincing each other, and that is the most interesting process. If you really talk half an hour, what of these wonderful beers may win a gold medal? And this is a very interesting process, and you always learn.
And sometimes there's a lot of disagreement, I guess.
Yes, there is, and then you really have to learn how to cope with that. Because there have been situations, luckily not on my table, but where they almost started fighting because some people simply refuse to take back their vote or to change their opinion, even if it's 1-7. And so normally you have the democratic rules, so we just vote, or we try to find reasons or ideas or deals or whatever, but in the end, normally we come to an agreement, and that is important.
So you reach a consensus.
Yes, that's important, and also you have to see, in the end, it's just a beer. So we still have to be friends, we still have to love the beer culture ourselves, be respectful, and that's the most important thing, not to have your idea winning in the end.
And not to hate the beer, but to be as meritocratic as possible, right?
Of course, and also every brewer wants to make a wonderful beer.
Of course.
So there's no brewer starting, I want to make bullshit. So, and you have to respect
Especially
that.
when they send it to the competition.
Yes, and you really, that is the most important thing. You have to respect that, you have to respect the brewer, and you also have to respect that not every batch is the same. So maybe something went wrong, but that doesn't mean the brewer, the brewery, whatever is totally bad. It's just something that went wrong, and they can correct it, and then it may be wonderful again. So really, don't overdo it, I would say, and don't be so quick in bashing breweries or rating them up or down. Give them another chance, and maybe another chance, and maybe talk to them and see how it develops. If it's
Exactly. So be kind. Be kind.
yes, be kind.
Great. Let's drink to that.
Yes, let's drink to that.
It's,
Cheers.
Fest beer.
Yeah, wonderful fest beer. I visited that brewery this year. Wonderful.
Yeah. This is from Wąsowa Brewery, near my town of Poznań. My next question is about your experience with international brewers, because of course you judge breweries and beers from all around the world. And I am sure that just like in Poland we have like our quirks and specialties, every country in the world also has it. What are like the most unique and curious things that you've witnessed, like national quirks of different trends in different countries that are nowhere there in other countries?
Oh, that's a lot of things. So
Because, for example, we love grodziskie, right?
Yes, of course,
and we
which is
promote
wonderful.
grodziskie all around the world.
Yeah.
But, when I went to Italy, for example, nobody knew what grodziskie is, right? So are there some things from other countries that you witnessed like that?
Yes, and maybe before I say this, I have to say another thing, because that is exactly what you were saying right now. The most important thing is travel, meet other brewers, meet other beer cultures, try and have this experience. Because now, as Grodzisky is traveling the world, many, many brewers drink Grodzisky, try Grodzisky, and make Grodzisky.
Yeah.
And even last year, I think in Brazil at a competition,
Yes.
Grodzisky was best of show.
Yeah.
So that means, and that's the best ambassador of Poland ever. So I think this is the most important thing. Of course, they all have their unique things. So, but it really depends on their knowledge, on their experience. So, of course, in Brazil, for example, you have these brewers which are brewing with the rainforest fruits. So very special fruits, very interesting tastes, also very special ways to bring this fruit aroma into a beer, not just mixing juice with beer, it's really a process. Also arranging the recipes with herbs and spices and fruits, and to get an interesting result in the end. And sometimes it's tastes I simply don't know. That happens if you are in, for example, Brazil or in Japan or wherever on a judging table, and you have as description blah blah taste, and you
But
don't have
you don't
any
know
idea.
this fruit.
You don't know the fruit. You don't know the spice. You don't know the herb, and then you really have to get into it to ask the local people, what is it? What is it about? And of course, this is really special. Also in terms of process, if you have the also Central American or South American beers, like the chicha beers, where they are chewing
the corn,
and spitting, that's totally insane for us. Or if we are in South Africa, for example, if you have the umkombothi, which I totally spelled wrong, but I cannot do this special.
What is this? Because I don't know that.
Yeah, that is their local way of making beer,
Okay.
historic way. It's more or less like a mash with a decent sourness.
Okay.
Very interesting, and every original family makes that at home. And also during the pandemic, that was a big thing there. But we don't know anything about it from in Europe or the US
Exactly.
or where. So there's a lot of different beer cultures, and that's maybe a sentence I tell to many people if they come and do their first beer tasting with us, and they say, "Oh, I don't like beer," for example. And I say, "Okay, your beer experience is maybe 0.5% of what the world of beers may be."
And most of those people who say I don't like beer
Yeah.
ever tasted only international lager.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
They know pale beer and dark beer and maybe a wheat beer, and that's what they know.
Yeah.
And but you have 99.5% other beers, other styles, other ideas, and as long as they are okay with drinking fermented stuff, we will find a beer for them, and I normally do. That's always my task to find.
Unless
something.
first they don't drink any alcohol, but then you have non-alcoholic beers.
Yes, now we have even an answer for that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Or they just don't like fermented stuff, which is rare because we're genetically like made so that we do like fermented stuff.
somehow.
Right? Yeah. So before we get to talking about the beer that you came with here, so the
Yeah.
Weicherer beer.
Yes.
Last question about your judging career. What do you think a beer judge can learn from a wine sommelier and vice versa?
That's a really interesting question, because I think that the main difference is we beer judges, we learn our stuff and we collect experience and we get better and better and more experience and we know the things. So if I have a stout, I know what to expect. I have the description of the competition and I can have a stout. If I am a wine sommelier, I really have to recalibrate every year in every region with every grape variety. So they have to drink way more than us, because every year they have to go to France, to Italy, wherever, drink all
Every
the
vintage, yeah.
the new wines of the new year, and it will for them totally be a totally new task. So luckily we have standards in the beer world where we really know what we have to expect. So this is something we can learn from them, to be a bit open also for different approaches, different batches, and not be too strict in our way. And the other way around, what a wine sommelier can learn is maybe easiness. coolness, not to be
Not
too...
to be too snobbish.
Yeah, exactly. Because most of them, or some of them, whatever, are really hard to take. So they are nosy, they are arrogant, and it's really hard. And even when they have their glass of wine, they can talk half an hour about that wine, but they lose everybody. Because that's a typical problem. If you have a tasting and someone is standing in front of you and is telling you about this fruit and that special aroma and whatever, either you don't get all these aromas, or normally you don't get these aromas, and then you have two options. Either you say, this guy is so good, I will never reach that. That means he lost you. Or they say, this guy is totally crazy and insane, that's all stupid, and you lost them again. So the thing is to be together with your people.
And more
to enjoy
connected
it.
to regular
Yes.
people.
Yes, and that is really important. And I think beer is something, as we see here, beer is something for socializing. Beer equalizes. Beer brings people together, no matter what job you are, what gender, whatever you are. With a beer in your hand, you can talk to each other and you can have a nice time. And that is something only beer can deliver. And also, that is something a wine sommelier can learn.
All right, thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Let's move to Weicherer. And so, from what I have read when I was doing the research for this conversation, is that it's a very special kind of brewery, the Kundmüller,
Yeah.
that they basically have like very modern equipment, but also they have open fermenters, right?
Yes.
So they also make like very classic, traditional German style beer, but at the same time, they're not afraid of making modern beers,
Yeah.
and they're quite successful in both.
Yes.
How is it possible that it's so successful and so good to connect the best of two worlds, the best of both worlds?
I think the main reason is the family itself. So the two brothers running it, their father, and the whole other family, which is also in the process, they are just dedicated to beer, to their beers, to the beer world. So that means maybe sound like an obvious answer, but here it is really. You can wake up them at 3 o'clock in the morning and say something, and you will get a beery answer. So they are really totally into that. They live it, they love it, and for them it's really their life. Even when they go on holiday, they go from brewery to brewery, which, for example, I not always do.
So they are always at work.
More or less, but that is something you have often. But really, it's really love and dedication. So that's one side, and the other side is the very special history of that brewery in the last, let's say, 30 years. So when I was like 16, 17, we were, of course, going around and visiting the main events at breweries, and at that time, that was the tapping of the first bock beer of the season. And when we went to the Weicherer brewery in that time, it was a small garage. There was one wooden barrel of beer, a very bad cover metal band making a lot of noise, and just like 3-4 hours having that beer, and that's it. And at that time, their beer selection was like 2 or 3 beers. It was their regular beer, which is the Keller beer, then their Märzen, and then a bock beer. That was the thing. And now they developed in 2 ways. They developed in all the other German beer styles, and they started to have international connections with a lot of countries in the world, like Brazil, like the United States, and others. And that is really a miracle. They're very open, and so people from all these countries come and make their beers or recipes together with those people, and they really start to take on these things and then develop their own ideas and manage to serve like a double IPA in a Franconian beer garden, which is really a tough job. So, yeah, it's unique. I don't know any other brewery which has this crazy history in the last 30 years. From, I don't know, maybe 500-600 hectoliters to maybe 35,000. So this is really a wonderful story.
It's a wonderful story, but you got me interested in that old Franconian beer garden and double IPA. I want to ask about like typical, old school Franconian beer drinkers.
Yeah.
who normally drink like Keller beer or Helles or something, right? And they come and they taste this double IPA. What's their first reaction?
Now if it's really their first time,
Yeah.
I would say half of them will more or less spit it out.
Okay.
Yeah, because what we are used to have is a really high drinkable beer, which is a bit more on the sweet side and is not too much on the hoppy side. So really easy drinking in a good way. And that is perfect with our sausages and cheese and whatever we have. So, and to have such a self-confident, bold, strong beer that is totally different from all they know. So at the first moment, this is really for them like a lesson you have to learn or not, whatever. And this is why I say it's really interesting because, again, it's more or less the only place I know in our area where that works, where really people go to the desk and go with their half-liter mug and say,
they
I
really
want the
do order
IPA.
that, yeah.
And this is really unbelievable. And that only
Yeah.
works because they learn to understand and they trust the people from the Weyerer brewery that they will do a good job. And to be honest, that is something because this key feature, which is drinkability, which you cannot study at a university. This is like a DNA of a brewery. That is something they have, and it's in every beer they make. And this is maybe the very special secret ingredient, which then makes even a double IPA drinkable in a beer garden.
So that's my next question. So does Weyerer Brewery somehow accommodate its, let's say, less typical German styles to the German public? So is the double IPA from Weyerer Brewery somehow made less hop forward just to suit the palate of people from Franconia or not?
It depends where you set the point, I would say. Of course, it is less intense in bitterness as a stone double IPA,
Okay.
but it's definitely way more bitter than any English IPA.
Okay.
So I think they do it in a clever way. Of course, they adjust a little bit to the Franconian
Just like
palate.
you have Asian
but-
food in Europe, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but they yes, like this. So they still keep the idea. I think that because I got a lot of IPAs from Franconian breweries, which are more or less a bit more hoppy, some things, because normally we don't have ales, so there is no real comparison for that at many places. And this is just it's nice, but it's nothing that really convinces me or I would see in a competition as an IPA. And what they do is really, and they do a lot of trials and they do it also with international people, and they really try to get the IPA idea with a Franconian twist. And that is really a nice way. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's great. So, of course, the Weyerer Brewery received some very important international recognition and medals. Gold medal in 2025 in World Beer Cup for the Rauchbier, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't taste it anymore because you drank it all. You
Yeah.
drank it all. There's no more Rauchbier. Did you like it?
Oh, yes.
Very good, very good. So unfortunately, I didn't manage. So in one of the reviews from you, in fact, I read in the internet somewhere that you called the smokiness of this Rauchbier that it's not like barbecue smokiness, but it's more elegant. What do you mean by that?
For me, this has a honey-like component. So I compare it, for example, with acacia honey or something like that. So there is some sweetness in it, and then that smokiness is more, noble. It's hard to say, to have a comparison. Not like a sausage or like a fish. It's more like in a very nice cheese, maybe. It's hard to say, but it's a different way of smokiness, which is gentle and which is, coming with the beer, but it also differentiates it from the Bamberg smoked beers, which is also important that you don't just make a copy, you make your own version. And this is really like an elegant, little noble, pale, very interesting, high drinkable beer.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
So you also mentioned that there were some collaborations with international breweries from the United States and from Brazil. And in fact, the one from Brazil, the Zapfenduster, won also the gold medal for imperial stout, and it's such a difficult category because now,
Yes.
listen, every brewery in the world makes an imperial stout.
Yeah.
So how do you make the best imperial stout?
But now we would need Roland, the brewer from the Wire, to ask that question.
In fact,
Or-
right after this conversation, we're going to taste it.
Okay, let's do it. Great, and also we could talk to Alexandre from Brazil.
Yeah.
They make it together. But I think, so first maybe, I have it a lot in my tastings because it's also a very stable beer. So you really exactly get what you want. No big variations or whatever. It's a very, very classy and good beer. And why it is so good, I think it has, because they have all the experience with the German Bock, double Bock, Dunkel, all that stuff.
Rollator, yes?
Yes, yeah, Rollator is a pale double Bock, but with
Yeah.
these high alcohol beers. And so they really have learned how to make high alcoholic or roasty beers with still a nice drinkability, with a nice balance, not too extreme, not too high in these aromas to be not drinkable anymore. So that is something they maybe have from that side. And probably Alexandre brought this hoppy idea so that you also have a special hoppiness in the beer, which is on the background, but supports it. So it balances out the roastiness, the roasty bitterness in a nice way. So, for example, I have it often with some chocolate or some cakes or even sometimes with steaks or spare ribs or whatever. So it's a very nice food pairing beer also. And it's really gentle. And you don't have I think it's 8 or 8.5%. You don't really realize that. You can drink it very easily, and that is also very dangerous.
It's true. So we'll have the Zapfenduster in a moment. I've already tried the Rollator. It's really good, really good. As you say, it's a Helles Bock. Yeah?
Heller Doppelbock.
Heller Doppelbock, yeah.
And
Heller
that is-
Doppelbock,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that is very rare
Yeah.
because I think on the whole German market, it's maybe a handful of pale double bocks, not many, because it's hard to make, and it's also the same thing. If it's very easy to go over the top, so that it's so alcoholic that people don't really like to drink it. And you know we have half-liter max, and it's a 9% or 10% beer, whatever. So this is really a challenge to produce something drinkable in a very nice way. And this is even more dangerous. It's almost like these Belgian very strong beers.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful. And again, the hoppiness is the key in that beer that really balances it out and makes it very smooth and very, even a little bit refreshing in the end, has some fruity notes. So yeah, it's also nice. And maybe one word, because this is a German thing, but also in terms of the names, I think it's quite funny. So we were just talking about Zapfenduster, which is also a play with words, and it's both. It means at the end of the night, but also at the end of your drinks. so that's very nice. Or the Rollator, it's normally the thing elderly people have to walk with.
Okay, yeah.
But also the one of the two brothers
It's
is
Roland.
Roland.
Yeah.
So it's also a play with words with this, and so you can have a little smile with every beer also because of the name, and that is also a great idea.
That's what I like about German beer culture, that it always has this German sense of humor, which I like. So yeah.
Okay, you're one of the very few people who think Germans have humor.
I do. I do. Maybe we have similar sense of humor.
Luckily, yeah.
Yeah. So in fact, we have time for one last question, and from what I also read is the Kundmüller Weiherer is a brewery that invests a lot in renewable energy, and it's a very ecological brewery. So how important is that, and how does it change also the whole process of brewing and so on?
Yeah, I was really surprised, to be honest, and I really got to know it. So maybe also because for all of you, I'm not an employee of that brewery, so I'm totally independent. I'm a journalist, but of course, as I
But you
said,
are the promoter.
yes, okay, yeah, and I was, as I said, I was there when I was 16 and I really got to know it when they made a little film about them and the brewery, and Roland, the brewer, is in a forest, and he starts talking about the surroundings of the brewery. And I think they said just tell something nice about our forest and about our green stuff and whatever. But he really said, okay, this is our environment, this is our nature, and my first job is to preserve this also for the next generations. And this is also the basis of all we are doing, because without that healthy nature, we cannot brew a good beer, because we don't have the recipes, we don't have the possibilities to do that. And that was really, in a way, very honest, very, very heartwarming. He said this, so I really understood that this is not just marketing.
It's not
blah, blah.
marketing. He really
It's-
believes in that. Yeah.
He really believes in that, because it was not necessary for him to say that. So it was really his honest words, and that was wonderful. And they really act like that. So they have solar power. They have a lot of water. How do you say it?
Recollection, yeah.
Yes, all these things. And but it's not so easy to do, because you have to be certified for that, and it's a long process, and the whole chain from hops and malts and everything has to be certified. Of course, that costs a lot of money, and especially for them, because they have both. They have organic and regular beers, and if you have both in one brewery, it's even more complicated. So that's also something they really spend a lot of money
And a lot of
on,
bureaucracy.
and a lot of bureaucracy and time and dedication. And I really like that, and that was something convinced me also to really also help them and support them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Markus.
Thank
It
you.
was a great pleasure. Let's come here. Everybody, big applause for Markus.
Yeah. Thank you.
Big applause for Markus. Thank you very much. I'd like to have a photo with you on stage. Can you take a photo of us on stage, please?